Hello, Forrester here, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be reviewing the Star Citizen ship, the Aegis Vanguard Warden. Star Citizen is currently in alpha testing, and the Vanguard is one of the flyable ships. The Vanguard Warden is described as a heavy fighter. For those of you who've watched my other reviews, you'll know I'm a big fan of multi-crew ships, which is why the Vanguard appeals to me. For 2 or 3 combat-oriented players, the Vanguard is a very interesting option. I followed the usual format for this review, splitting into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour and deck flow, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs, and finally summarising. I've included timestamps in the video description to help navigate to each part of the review. If you do enjoy this review, please subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. That helps you to be notified of future videos and helps me to grow the audience. Part 1. Ship Tour and Deck Layout. So entry into the Vanguard is through a cargo ramp at the rear. I say cargo ramp, the Vanguard actually not able to take cargo, but it feels like a ramp. The door can be a little bit tricky just getting access to it, so one thing to be aware of. At the back of the rear section is some component access for the quantum drive. Little door which is a nice touch. Moving further forward through the Vanguard, each of the sections has a security door attached. Inside the main compartment there is a small bathroom off to one side. There's a pull-out storage bin. There's a kitchen area, a pull-out weapons rack. And there are 2 beds for the crew to be able to sleep and log out in. There is access to avionics components and an engineer station for second crew member. At the top is access to the turret. The manned turret drops down before taking the gunner up into the top of the ship. It is an exposed turret. The field of view for the turret is pretty reasonable, basically anything on the top of the ship, and a good 360 degrees all around. Coming back down from the turret, just exits out into the main central room. I suspect this is one of the reasons why the Vanguard is unable to carry cargo, as the turret access uses quite a lot of space. Moving further forward into the cockpit, there is more component access, again nicely protected by doors, with power plant and shield generator on either side, as well as the coolers. And finally at the front is the pilot's chair. Part 2. Combat Performance. Unsurprisingly, for a heavy fighter, the Vanguard comes very well armed, even as stock. The nose sports 4 fixed size 2 cannons, by default the MVSA laser cannon, and underneath is a gimbaled size 4 Revenant ballistic repeater. I love the Revenants. I put 24 of them on my Hammerhead if you've seen that video, but if that's not enough for you, it's possible to swap that out for a fixed size 5 weapon. The manned turret comes equipped with 2 Sawbuck repeaters, although I'd recommend swapping those out as the ammunition really doesn't last long. And finally, to top out the loadout, there are a selection of missiles. 8 size 2 missiles and underslung capacity for a size 4 rack. By default, that brings 2 size 3 missiles on each side. So that's a lot of stats. Power 5 suggested I include a link to Aircool, which has got more information on the loadout, and I've linked that in the video description. But what does it all mean? It's really easy to get the guns firing on targets. I'll go into more detail when I talk about handling, but the nose points very well, especially at SCM speeds. Most of the firepower is in the nose, so it's pretty important to keep the Vanguard in a forward firing role. Be sure to set up weapons groups though, because there's a fair differential in range between the two pilot controlled weapons types. Thankfully, as a heavy fighter, the Vanguard also takes a reasonable amount of punishment. The two size 2 full stop shields are quite beefy, and even when that fails, we found ourselves quite happily continuing to fight whilst missing a wing. So as far as combat goes, I'd say the Vanguard does not disappoint. Part 3. Handling and visibility. Starting with the visibility, it's fairly good. In combat situations, as long as you're keeping your target in front of you, you should be able to keep them in your sights. The cockpit offers a good view out to the front and particularly above. There's no glass below your feet to see through when landing, which is a shame, but largely it's not needed. As for handling, I probably want to go into a bit more detail here. So, handling overall is good. The Vanguard still flies like a fighter, in particular being able to point the nose responsively. At space combat maneuvering speeds, it handles well. Where you do carry through momentum, it's easily corrected by a burst of afterburner, and the powerful engines and thrusters do feel powerful. If you do end up going faster, however, things change a little. The acceleration is good, but the deceleration is not quite so good at higher speeds. That's not to say it's bad, but it doesn't compare well to the rate of acceleration or the braking ability at combat speeds. It's something you quickly get used to and compensate for. Within atmosphere, the Vanguard handles very well, largely due to the fact that the speed is usually considerably limited and, at combat speeds, the Vanguard is definitely in its happy place. Short bursts on the afterburner will keep the nose pointed where you want it if you're flying in coupled mode. In fact, the Vanguard handles so predictably in atmosphere, I was happy to actually do a little bit of formation flying with it, which I'd usually be reluctant to even try in Star Citizen. For takeoff and landing, the Vanguard handles just fine. It's responsive in all directions. My only watch out would be that because the landing gear is wheeled, sometimes if you're carrying forward momentum into a landing, you'll get a little roll and potentially land a bit further forward than expected. But it's never really caused me any issues whilst using the Vanguard. Part 4. Operating costs. So, I should really call this section operating costs and profitability as they're both linked. Starting with costs, repair, rearm and refuel costs are thankfully very economical. I'd usually expect about 1000 Alpha UEC for the whole lot. The quantum drive is excellent, has a good speed and a good range for a fighter type craft. It'll go from Olisar to New Babbage and back on a single tank and in fairly good time. Whilst the Vanguard doesn't have a cargo bay or any ability to load cargo, there is a good space in the midsection in which it's possible to store delivery crates. In about an hour's worth of flying, I chained up 10 delivery missions from Crusader to New Babbage for about 70k. But of course, the main role of the Vanguard is combat, so that might be where you prefer to make your cash. The bounty hunter missions were, frankly, easy in the Vanguard, with some of the larger ships perhaps needing a little more planning, but definitely in the doable space. Claim jumper missions were also feasible, but by the end of it, ammunition would be running low, making it difficult to chain them immediately together. But, all considered, even though the Vanguard isn't an economic ship compared to others at the same price point, it still makes a reasonable return and rewards you for combat, if that's your gig. Part 5. The verdict. Let's start with cost. To pledge for the Vanguard Warden will set you back $260, or to purchase this in-game will be just over 3 million Alpha UEC. The pledge price is a fairly steep price point, given the competition such as the Retaliator, Constellation series, or even the highly profitable Caterpillar. The Vanguard is an excellent fighter, it does a good job against smaller craft and up tiers well against some of the bigger ships, but the price point makes it difficult for me to recommend. I guess if the price was shared between two people who wanted to crew it together, perhaps that might be okay. But then, would you be better just grabbing a Constellation, saving the cash and earning a Vanguard in game? I don't know. But I can imagine that after playing Squadron 42, the Vanguard will feel like a really beefed up fighter, and for the combat side of things will definitely bring a lot to the table. Perhaps with a growing pirate scene, the Vanguard might become more sought after as an escort to the economic ships. I really hope so. It's a nice ship to fly, and clearly the inclusion of beds, giving the ability to log out, makes it a true long-range fighter. I'm really keen to know some viewer thoughts on this one though. How do you see the Vanguard being used? Do you fly it now? Please share in the comments, I'll be very interested to read. Once again, thank you to all of those of you who subscribe to my channel. It really motivates me to continue making videos. Please press that like button if you enjoyed watching. And for anybody looking for a group who plays the current patch of Star Citizen regularly, I've included a link to my organisation in the video description. And to close out, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll hear from me in the next video.